Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another video. This is part 2 of the race timer video or series. In this video what we're going to do is we're going to further add to the previous project. Where we left off is we got the start timer to start when we cross the line, and you can see that the timer starts counting up on the screen. So what we probably should do now is set up a lap timer as well. So essentially the difference between the two is the race timer will capture the complete time of all of the laps added up together. So for example, if you've got a 10-second, let's say, circuit, 3 laps, you're expecting your race timer to be about 30 seconds plus, whereas your lap timer will record the time per lap. So what we'll do is we'll get straight onto it and we'll get the lap timer added, and then we can start recording lap times and sort of make a difference between whether it was better or worse. So let's jump straight into it. No transition here. So what we're going to do is for our lap timer, we're going to need another text block on our UI, and seeing as the UI is the last place we left off on the previous one, this is where we'll start. So I'm essentially just going to duplicate this text block, and I'm just going to bring it down and just pop it underneath. And I am going to add some extra text blocks just at the side now, just as some sort of tags. So what I'll do is I'll pop that there, and I'm just going to put race timer, or for short RT. So race timer, and I'll just try and keep this. Let's just see what the positions are. 76, 324. And we'll put that at 324 as well, just to keep them nice and in line. However, they don't look like they're in line because the sizes are slightly different, of course. So we'll change that to 50, and we will change the font size again to 32, I believe. So that looks about right. And then we'll duplicate this other label, pop it down below, and I guess 376, so we'll put this one at 376. Just have them nice and lined up like that. And where was the previous one? That was at position 76, so we'll do the same again, 76. Now that doesn't seem quite right, so have I made some changes? Oh, I messed up, it's actually 148. 148. So there we go. So and then we'll change this RT now to LT. Oh, that's a lowercase. Typical, I'm terrible with caps lock, so we'll just leave that. So, and actually what I think might be better is if we change the lap time to a regular font size rather than bold, just so then it's not as dominant, and maybe actually adjust the font size down to 28. So now then positions are in the right place, it should look fine. So let's just compile and play. I just want to see how it looks. So that's fine. Obviously it says text block at the moment because there's no data being fed into it, but that'll change in just a sec. Obviously you work around with these positions, make it look fancy. You probably don't want your text like that, but I'll leave that up to you. So I'm just going to save that so it's saved, and obviously this text block we're going to need to make a binding to the player controller, but we're not going to use the race time as text. What I am, well, I don't know if you heard that, but there was an emergency vehicle driving past, but that's gone now. So what we're going to do is under the player controller, let's have a look. We've got this race timer. Now it might seem like it makes sense just to tap into this time to sort of feed the lap time. However, I'm really going to make a copy of this in a sense, because for the lap time we're going to want to start it over again each lap. And I think trying to capture a time as we cross over the line might just skew it a little bit. So we're going to create a copy of this, and that'll form as the basis, and then we'll link it to the start line. So I tell you what am I going to do is I'm just going to copy this back end bit here, and I'm going to create 2 more custom events. So start lap, and then another custom event for end lap, providing my capitals are right. They are. I'm now going to paste that timeline in, we're going to go to play from start, and then end is going to be stop. So that should be nice and fine like that. Let's just open up this timeline and make sure that the time is copied over. So that's absolutely fine. We don't need to make a change to that. And it sounds like that emergency vehicle is coming back. So there's another one. So that's pretty much fine, except this this promotion here, this variable here, we don't want. We actually want to promote this to another variable, and we'll call this lap time as text. That emergency vehicle's actually thrown me off a little bit. But so we've now got a lap time as text. So to start with, it's an exact clone of the race timer. What we can do is just go back to our UI, and we'll just set this text to bind as vehicle controller lap time as text. So at the moment, we're just going to have two of the same time on the screen and nothing's going to happen. But obviously, when we cross over our start line, once we cross over it a second time, we want to tell it, right, this was a completed lap, restart the timer. So that's absolutely fine. So what we can do is we can set up a sort of a boolean, a condition to say, has the race started? If it hasn't, start the race timer and the lap timer. And then if the next time we cross the start line, if the race has already started, we know, okay, this time we just need to end the lap. So to do that, we'll just add a quick boolean, and we'll just say race started, question mark maybe. Now, I know it's typically frowned upon to put symbols in your variables, but I'm not that bothered. So race started, we're going to get that, and we're going to use a branch from that, and we're going to say, has the race been started? And let's just compile this and make sure that the race hasn't started by default. So it has the race started. If it's false, we want to get a reference from our player controller and say lap time, start lap, sorry. So if it's false, we want to start the lap. But we also want to start the race. But we only ever want to do the race timer once. Now, I'm not too sure what order this is going to go in. We might need to rearrange this at a future date. But if I just pop that down there and plug that in, I'm just going to add a couple of reroute nodes here just to make it look a bit nicer. So I'll pop that there like that, and then possibly just pop a reroute node in there like that. I guess if I put that there, I could just drag off that to that and make that look totally neat. And I guess also I could put that there, but I don't know if I'm going to reuse that for something else. It depends. So hit compile. So we're going to cross over our start line. If the race hasn't started, we're going to start a lap and start a race. Now this will happen almost instantaneous, so there's not going to be sort of like any out of sync, but just in case there is, I'm just going to jump over the line and just see if there's any difference. So them times look identical to me. What I might do, just to check that, is from true, I'm not going to do that. From true, I'm just going to do an end lap, and I'm also going to do an end race. I'm going to put these two in series like that, from true. But at the end of our starting laps, I'm just going to do a quick set and set the race to started. So then this only happens once. So a bit of a condition here. If the race hasn't started, start the race, and if it has, we're going to stop the race. Now obviously this means we've only got one lap. We've no way of checking to see if somebody's just driven over the line and then reversed. But that's just a good indicator that them times are in sync. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete those for now. I'm going to leave this race started at the end though, because that is actually pretty useful. And then we just need to think of a logical way of having this race thing set up. Okay, so before we can actually do this this true branch, I think we need to set up sort of like a lap counter, just so then there's actually a real reason to need to end the lap. Now, thinking of places to put the lap timer, what I'm actually thinking we should do is we should set up a custom game mode, and we'll store the information within the game mode. So I'm going to go back to the content folder. I'm just going to make a new game mode, so that's under blueprints, blueprint class. And then when this comes up, you just want a game mode base. I'm just going to put GM underscore time trial, because essentially that's what kind of thing it is. Or just race, I guess. But time trial for me. I'm going to open that up. Now, before we do anything else, I just want to set the default classes on this side. So the player controller is going to be the vehicle controller. The default pawn class is going to be, I think, the sports car pawn. I don't think I can set my HUD up, so we're gonna leave that as default. And I think that's pretty much it. So the rest of them will just be defaulted, but essentially we've just set up the vehicle player controller and the sports car. So that's that. But now we've got this time trial open, what we want to do is we want to add some variables in here. But because I'm prone to forgetting, I'm just going to go back to the example map and I'm going to change my game mode to the one we've just made. So I'm going to change it to GM time trial. And if we go back and just have a quick look, you should see that it says sports car and vehicle controller there. And if you press play, apart from the view being a bit different, everything's as expected. So I'm not too sure why that has opened the way it did. It should open in a mobile editor like that, so that's fine. So GM time trial. So we're going to need to record laps, and I guess we're going to need to record how many laps we need to do and how many laps we've done, and we need to be able to display that on the screen. So let's just get rid of the tick. We are going to use the event begin player, so we'll leave that there for just a second. So let's just create laps required. Laps required, and I'm going to change this to an integer. Do I need it visible? I don't think so just yet, but let's leave it like that. So laps required, and I guess laps completed. And actually it's not really a boolean, so we can take that question mark off the end. So laps required, laps complete. I'm just going to hit compile, and for my laps required I'm just going to set a default there to 2. Obviously you could set up a UI to be able to pick how many laps from sort of like a start menu or something like that, and you'd just tap into the game mode with get game mode, and then cast to your GM, cast to GM, like that, and then you'll be able to set the number of laps. To do that, you may need to set this as exposed, so expose on spawn or instance editable. So just a heads up there if you want to branch out a little bit further, but we're not going to do that. So first of all, we need to set the laps required. So we'll drag that out. We'll get that. Now, obviously, I've typed in a default of 2, so that's what this is going to be set to. But I'm just going to set it here at event begin play just to make sure that that is definitely set in there. Essentially, you could leave that open and just type your 2 in there, but I like to just set it as a sort of like a default value. 2 laps is a good amount anyway. So laps required is going to be set to 2. I'm also going to set the laps complete to 0. It's 0 by default, but again, I just want to make sure that that is definitely set. And then we're going to need to make sort of like how we used the time conversion macro earlier to make a nicely formatted string for us to display it on the screen as text. We're going to need to do the same for laps. So should I add? It's going to be very unique to this. So what we'll do is we'll add the macro in here rather than inside the library. Just because I don't think I'm ever going to use this anywhere else. I'm just going to put this as laps as text. Now for an input, we're going to take in 2 integers. So import and input. Let's call the first one laps required. And then the second one's going to be laps complete. Complete. These are both going to be integers again, following the other two. And then for an output, we're going to have laps as text, and that's going to be a text. So we just need to do some very basic formatting here, but it's better to have one little macro than having what we're going to put in between on the blueprint every time we need it. So laps required is going to be converted to a string, and then we're going to go into an append node. So let's just add that first. Append string. So we're going to have the laps completed here. We will have a space, a forward slash, and a space. Add a new pin, and then the laps required there. Because the laps required is what we're setting. So laps required will go there, like that, and laps complete will go there, like that. So just a quick crossover. Alternatively, obviously, you could just rearrange these two. One sec. You could just rearrange these two like that, and then you wouldn't need to do that crossover. So if you're fussed about the prettiness of it, you can just change it like that. And essentially, that's pretty much it. So we'll do that like that. Hit compile. We can close this macro now. What we can do is drag this out. We will plug in the laps required and then laps complete. I'm just going to make a quick reroute node. I'm really struggling to grab these nodes today. I'm going to pop that there. That should be fine like that. Drag that down one more. From that, what are we going to need? Oh yeah, we just need to promote that to a variable. So promote that to a variable, have that set. It's already got the appropriate name, well, apart from that 0 at the end, so let's just delete that. We can't already have that. Why can't we have that? Is it because I've used it in this macro? I'll tell you what, I'm just going to call it lap text. Lap text, just like that. Hit compile. I don't know why I should. Maybe it's because I haven't compiled and it thinks I've already used it. But that lap text is now set. So what we should be able to do in the UI now is if we create some more text box. So I'll drag that out. I am going to change the anchor, however, to center, because I think it'll just be a bit easier if we set that to 0 and 0. Maybe we should center justify. Tell you what, if we change the alignment to 0.5, that'll center it. And if we don't really need to do on that one, I guess. For the position Y, I think I want, is it minus 100, minus 250. Let's go minus 300. There you go, all nice. So I'm just going slightly above these. Just see, everything tends to be, on racing games, tends to be like in a circle around your racing window, or completely off to the side so it doesn't get in your way. But I think it's nice to have your laps quite visible. So I'm going to just rename this to laps. Would you have the word laps? Would you have the word laps? Yeah, let's just have it. So I'm going to copy this. Well, I'm going to duplicate it, sorry. I'm going to change the position to minus 250, so it's just under it. I need to move that over so it's centered. However, this one is going to be bound to the game mode, so we need to go back to the graph. In here we're going to get game mode. We're going to cast to GM time trial. We're going to plug that into there like that. We're going to make a reference to it, so promote to variable as GM time trial. Hit compile, go back to your designer. With the lap text that you want to be set to the laps, I guess, bind as GM time trial laps as text. So now if we hit compile and we play, we should see we've got the word laps at the top, but because our information here is sort of set as 0 and that's not displayed, I hope that's the reason. Let's just check this lap text and let's just change it to 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Hit compile and play. That's not actually visible, which I'm not too certain about. Let me just check that. Okay, so I actually made a bit of a rookie mistake. So the reason that the lap timer isn't functioning how it should, once it loads, is that going to start? You can see that it's blank at the moment. The reason is because when we change the game mode, we only changed it in the project. Now, I always forget to do this, but the world override overrides the project settings. So we just need to change this game mode to the GM time trial. So then they both now should say time trial. And when you press play, because it's using that game mode, the laps show up. So now what we can do is we can move on to the start line where if we've already started the race, we need to start adding laps to our lap counter. So because we've already set up the laps required, laps complete within the game mode, this should be quite simple. What we need to do is we need to get a reference to our game mode inside this start line. Now, that's very easy because what we can just do is get game mode like that. Let's do a cast to GM and we'll drag that into here, and then as that we'll just promote that to a variable as game mode, just like that. Pop that up there, move that back, make it look nice and neat. Hit compile. So now we've got that reference, we can just drag our time trial straight in, get that, and then we have the laps complete. So we'll get that. And really all we need to do is take this, add 1 to it, and set it. What you can do, possibly, is if you do ++, there's an increment int. So what this does is, as the tooltip tells you there, adds 1 to it and then resets it. Now, I'm not 100% certain if this works from a cast, but I guess we'll find out. So what we've got here, so we're going to start the race. If we then hit the start line again, we want to add a lap. And we want to start the lap timer again. So we're going to do start lap, which won't work because we've not got a reference. So let's just drag that up. Start lap. Obviously I could have just copied that, but you don't think. Yeah, so that's fine just like that. I might just chuck in another reroute node there, just so it doesn't, it might look uglier now, but so that should restart the timer. So our lap complete should increase. Let's just compile and give that a quick test. So we'll drive over it, and I guess if we go back over it, our laps should change. Okay, so they're not changing just yet. So I'm not too certain if that's working as it should be. Or whether we need to forcefully update the laps. Okay, so what's actually happening is when we crossing the line, the reason our lap text doesn't change is because the only time that we've set that text is in this event begin play, which obviously doesn't update as the game's playing. So we're going to need to kind of do this same thing again, but as a function. So let's create an event. So let's do a custom event, and let's just say update laps, and again there with the capitals, update laps. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set this. Let's get rid of that. We're going to want to set this lap text again, and we're going to need our laps complete and our laps required. So they should be fine just like that. Now, what might be worth doing at this point is we could do with doing sort of a comparison on these and saying if they're equal to each other with complete the race as well, just so we've got that ready. So let's just add a boolean race complete. Change that to a boolean and we'll have that set. And I guess if the laps complete is greater than or equal to, you don't really want to do an equals equals, because if something mad happens where 10 laps gets added, it might go straight over the equals. But if you do greater than and equals, it kind of like it's like bug prevention. So that's usually a good tip. So if A is greater than B, which if it's this one, if that branch equals true, then we know that our race is complete. Now obviously we're not going to do anything with that information just yet, but I think just potentially future-proofing that is probably not a bad idea. Let's just tidy this up again. Let's chuck in a couple more reroutes. Drag them down like that. So I think all in all that should just do it. Now when we go back to the start line, what I think we should do is when we reset that lap timer, we should also, actually that comes from the GM. Let's do an update laps. Let's pop that in. And again, a couple of reroutes. Just pop those in like that. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to delete this reroute here. I don't actually like it. I think it looks a bit ugly. I might just chuck in another reference just like that instead. I think that looks a bit better. So hopefully this works now and I've not forgot anything else. Let's go. So we drive over the line and we're currently doing our that's not actually accurate. Oh, and that went up 2 times then. Ah. Are the wheels triggering it? The wheels are triggering it. So, I didn't think about that at all. Obviously, this is a raised thing. And if we look at the model of the vehicle, which one would it be? It's that one. If we look at the vehicle from the right side, yeah, so when this tire hits the line, it's triggering it, and then because of the gap between the car and the floor, it's triggering it again with the back wheels. Why didn't I think of that? So I'm actually going to raise this up a little bit. That's a bit too much. Is that too much? Yeah, it's too much. Let's just add 5 to it. And let's just see if that prevents that from happening. So obviously your start line's a little bit thicker, but okay, so it's still doing it a little bit. My other option is I use a collision box instead and just get rid of this entire bar. Let's go to the start line and no, I like the look of this, so I'm not going to do that. But what I might do is add a box collider. I just type in box. Box collision. How big is that? It's going to be small. Oh, no, it's not that bad actually. Let's leave it there like that, but let's change the height of it to 50. Is that made it taller? That does not seem right. So let's just do that like that. Pop that like that. I guess we need to make it as wide, don't we? Width is going to be this, so 50. Does that look about right? That looks bang on, so we'll have that. On the event graph, we just need to change this now to box on begin overlap. and we'll plug that in here like that. Let's just make sure that it's on overlap all, compile, play. So if we drive over the line now, we're still getting them two. Let me figure out a better way of solving this, and then hey guys, that's actually the end of the video. The fix for this part was, as you see here, just before I turn the video off, I actually delete the original overlap event for the actual start line, and I keep the new one we put for the overlap box. That actually fixes it, because the overlap box is big enough to capture the entire car, not just the wheels. So that's actually the fix. But like I said, that's actually the end of the video. I want to thank you for watching so far. And obviously this is part 2. It's been a long time. I do apologise for that. For anybody that's watched the channel for a while, you may notice in this race video, the background has been different. I was having some renovations done, and some other bits and pieces were going on in my life that I actually had to change locations. I'm actually back in my original office now, so that's all sorted. One other thing, the hard drive that I used to record all my videos, I thought would be safer being on an external hard drive. Yep, something went wrong with that. I ended up losing loads of data. So this is all the footage that I've got for this entire race thing. So from now on, I'm gonna have to re-record the rest of it. And honestly, that was a daunting task for me. I really didn't want to have to re-record the rest of the video, and because of that, I didn't. So I can only apologise. That's why you've not seen any videos released for a while. It's funny because when I released part 1, I was already recorded most of this episode, and I put in that video that, you know, comment down below how soon you want it, and obviously it's been months, so I do apologise for that. But again, thank you for watching. If you're listening still now through all this rambling, I do appreciate it. I appreciate your support if you've stuck around whilst I've not been posting. Obviously, you may have noticed I'm still replying to comments. The Discord's still living strong. If you've got any issues, or if there's any help that you require, I'm always available on the Discord, even when I'm not posting on YouTube. But I've got a burst of encouragement to sort of start posting again. This kind of video series discouraged me a little bit, but I'm going to release part 2. Well, you're watching part 2, so that's released. I've got some ideas to do some shorts, just to get some quick tips out of there, and I'm going to start working on some other projects. So stay tuned for that. Please subscribe if you're not already. Consider giving me a like. And like I said, pop your comments down below if you've got any questions, or just to show appreciation. That's always liked too. So that's it for me. I'm going to shut up now, and thank you for watching. See you in the next video.